foot off the accelerator there, Gabe. I know how excited you are for episode 5.
I never have my foot off the accelerator.
Yes, welcome everybody. Episode 5 of Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us, either live or, of course, on our video on demand. Also joining not just Gabe revving the engines, but also revving the engines from our Perth office, Mr. Michael Peach.
There he is, the man, the myth, the legend.
There he is. We're hearing from Peach a little bit later, but good to be on episode 5.
I know, it's great,
Yeah.
and look what I'm rocking on
yes,
this episode.
let's mention the new swag.
Salted Stone swag, baby.
Yes, anything to cover up the hair mess that you had this morning when you came in.
Wow, it was windy, okay.
All right, well, let's kick on. We're not here to talk about Gabe's attire. We're here to talk about, of course, another episode of our wonderful Under the Hood. So let me kind of set the scene for everybody for this week's particular episode that we're going to be talking about. If I can just go forward, that's the speakers that you've just met. 3 of us. Sometimes the lovely Maddie Reid joins us as well from the solutions team in Perth, but today we have Michael Peach tuning in, as you saw earlier. So we're going to be talking about the wonderful subject of data management and quality in your data, which is important. It's not a very sexy topic, but it's a very important topic. Or maybe it is for you.
You
Maybe
could
you like
argue,
that sort of
you
stuff.
know.
Yeah. Well, I know Peachy loves this topic. So, but why it's so important? 44% estimate. Now, this was actually a survey, by the way, if I just put perspective in, by a company called Validity, who actually went to 1,200 CRM users and 600 organizations to actually get this data. So it's got some kind of data backing. Talking about data, there's a lot of data in that
Data
sentence.
backing that data.
44% estimated that the company loses, this is interesting, 10% of their annual revenue due to poor quality data. So that's an interesting one, that you could be losing dollars and cents by not having quality data. 64% of the respondents said that they would consider leaving their current role. I'm out of here, baby, if additional resources are not allocated to a robust CRM data quality plan. So imagine losing people just because your CRM data isn't good. There you go. 75% said that staff sometimes, this is an interesting one, smacking this one, staff sometimes or often fabricate data to tell the story they want decision makers to hear.
Not us though, this is all legit.
So
data.
hands up if that's you putting fake data in just to make you look good in the eyes of management. But that's pretty scary stuff. So data management, according to HubSpot, is the effective practice of collecting, storing, protecting, delivering, and processing data. And that's what we're going to be covering today. So it's all stuff, all data around your customers, your prospects, employees, deals, competitors, and finances, all together in that one neat little package that HubSpot looks at. So data quality is one of the most important things that are talked about today. Here's some elements about how you make sure that your data is of quality nature. Accuracy. Is the data correct? Obviously 75% of people aren't putting accurate data in, which is a worry. But firstly, is it correct? Completeness, is your data comprehensive? Relevance, is the data that you actually need? There's nothing worse than data in a system that you're not going to actually use, because it's just cluttering up the system. It's not giving you the insights that you need in your organization. Consistency, does your data conflict with other sources? So it's got to make sense, the data that you're bringing in. Accessibility, which is super important, like are the right people getting access to the right information within your data set? And then finally, timelessness, is your data up to date? There's nothing worse than old data or corrupt data coming in and giving you reporting that's not quite accurate or really up to date. Operations Hub is one of the platforms we're going to touch on, which is a fantastic hub within the HubSpot growth suite, making data management so much easier. 3 of the big things that I love about Operations Hub: data sync, a new native way of connecting your business apps. So of course there's the awesome big app marketplace of all the extra things you can bring in. The Operations Hub makes it super easy. The next generation of PySync. Programmable automation enables you to execute code directly within HubSpot workflows, which is super exciting. And data quality automation that automatically cleans your data instead of you having to manually go in each time. If you set it up correctly, then automatically your data is, I suppose, cleansed and kept up to date. So the quality is within there. Just a couple of things to set our scene on our subject matter on episode 5 here of Under the Hood. It's data quality and management. And to tell us more, Michael Peach.
Thanks, Tony, for a beautiful introduction. And cheers, Gabe. I'm jealous of the hat. Hopefully, I'll be getting mine shortly. Yeah, absolutely. Today's all about data. Syncs in nicely. If you didn't already be able to catch it, you could watch our previous Underhood that I joined about a single customer view. I think this sort of is a really good sort of follow-up to that, which sort of takes a look at the idea of, if you want to have this singular view of a customer, it's really important that the data and information that you've got is actually accurate, it's relevant, and it's presented in the right format and the right way, to make it really just easy to understand. The most annoying and frustrating thing is when, especially as you're moving or migrating systems, is trying to take different data sets and put them into one new system, trying to organize that and automate it and make it look and sort of come together all the same. HubSpot's got the solution for that now, which is Operations Hub. So Tony mentioned that's really what we're going to be talking on today. We're going to be diving into a couple of those features in a minute when I share my screen. But before we get into that, let's just have a quick chat about Operations Hub, what it is. So obviously it's the newest hub that HubSpot launched. They launched it sort of about a year and a half ago now. With that, they have added in a whole bunch of additional sort of features that pulls in a bunch of tools of a lot of the companies they've acquired probably over the last 2 or 3 years. So PySync, Tony mentioned, was one of them around data sync, but they've also acquired a couple of other companies around sort of data syncing. And then they've also built out a lot of their own tools. I don't really think Hub's the best word to describe what Operations Hub is, because the rest of HubSpot's hubs kind of are different rooms within your house. You've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got service, and you've got your CMS or your website. I think Operations Hub, to me, is more like all of the smart tools that sit in your house. It's the things that enable you to have connectivity and control all your lights with your smartphone, things like that. Operations Hub is what makes all of those hubs sing. It's what makes all those hubs connect really nicely to each other, and ensures the data that flows between them is flowing through in a really consistent and considered format. Yeah. So I like to think of it in that way. It's a bit of a different approach to thinking about it. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to take you through a couple of things within Operations Hub, and sort of explain a little bit about what the features are and whether or not really it's something that maybe you might need for your business. So let's jump in real quick here. Okay.
This is where Picture looks at a million and one open tabs on his computer.
So you say this,
architect.
Yeah. I mean, it did take a while. I have 3 screens, and I'm like, wait, which one? And I'm pretty sure I've got the right one up. We should be on HubSpot in our test portal here.
Yeah, it's not your current shares. You're okay. It's the right one.
So we're here, and again, as usual with some of my demos, we're jumping into a test portal here. So a lot of the data you're going to see today is in actual live consumer data, and there's going to be a lot more stuff that you'll probably be wanting to do in your real portals. But let's have a quick sort of overview of Operations Hub. So there's a few different things that you can do that I really love. I'm going to start with sort of the overview, or what I call is the sort of that the complete sort of main system that they've added in. It's actually the newest feature to Operations Hub, and that is like this data quality section that you can see up the top in a lot of different aspects of the sort of your portal. You'll notice it under the contacts tab, which I'm in right now. It sits up here. It also sits in a bunch of other areas, anywhere in reality where you may want to have a view of the data quality that sits within that sort of hub. So I'm just going to click on that really quickly just to show you what this looks like. So this is what I call sort of that command center. It's where you can come to see exactly the quality of your data and any issues you might be having across any of your different data sets and data points or records within your current CRM system. So you can see here on the left-hand side, it's got a summary of my properties. It tells me sort of the total properties. It looks at those that have no data, those that are unused, and things like that. And it also gives me the opportunity to sort of come in and understand, okay, well, a little bit more about that. I can sort of see some issues here, and then I can click to view sort of more property insights. Doing so will take me to another sort of page where I can come in and have a look at the sort of property insights sort of page here. I can see, what the issue of the property is, the fact that it's sort of like it's unused right now, okay, and we can start to look and think about, okay, do we need to sort of remove some of these? Maybe there's some properties here that sort of unnecessary or are duplicate versions of other properties and they're just not being used right now. A really good example is generally we often see that sometimes people will create like sort of the same property multiple times with slightly different names. So someone might have like an industry property and someone else might call it what do you do for your job or something like that, and you start to get sort of inconsistencies in where data is stored. So this sort of property insights section can help you sort of identify those that aren't being used and potential duplicates within your properties, as well as some other issues. The ones here we got here are under records. This is where we can come in and actually look at our existing sort of contact records that we may have. And we can look at those that maybe have formatting issues. So if we click into formatting issues, it's going to come here and take me to our here, and we can see, we have some consumers here that have common placeholder text. So that is that they have the word test. So you can see here, yep, what we should do is we should be removing their last name and things like this, because it's currently got that placeholder value, whatever it might be. Might be that we just want to delete those contacts because they were test contacts, and it's a really good way for us to just clean up our CRM system. So there's a bunch of really cool stuff here. It gives you that really quick overview. And one of the really good things, and I'm going to come back to this a little bit later around data sync, is it also gives you some a quick way to see if there's any real concerns or issues with any of the data that sits in your system. I really like it as just a quick place to come and have a sort of view of how are we actually doing right now in terms of our data quality, where do we need to spend some time. Just a really nice little place to come in and sort of view that sort of stuff. So that's our command center, as it were. The other sort of area of Operations Hub that I really like is the, and I think Tony mentioned this as well, is this sort of idea of some of the programmable sort of workflow automation and data cleaning tools that are available. So if we look here on the screen right now, if you aren't as familiar with HubSpot, I'm in the workflows section of HubSpot here, and I've just gone and created a new workflow. And what you'll notice is when you do have Operations Hub is we have a few additional sort of new features that are available. So for any sort of legacy clients, they're just letting you know that the webhooks functionality has now been moved over to Operations Hub. Any legacy clients that had webhooks available as sort of Marketing Hub Enterprise, they will still retain that. But for any new customers, webhooks are now part of Operations Hub Professional. So a webhook, for those that don't understand, is a way that you can actually trigger based off of an action or an enrollment trigger. You can actually trigger a post message sending data from HubSpot out to an external system, for example. And you can also retrieve data from another system as well. So you can post or send or receive some data from external systems using webhooks. Really good functionality just for sending out data to an external system that then needs to do something with that. For example, might be sending out some deal data out to Xero, so an invoice can be created in Xero as another system, and stuff like that. So whatever it might be, there's a lot of use cases for webhooks. Generally speaking, you'll probably need a developer to help with that sort of integration setup. Webhooks are a really great tool. I'm going to come to custom code in a second, because that's like, I guess, the most advanced sort of section of what Operations Hub does. But for all those who just want to sort of get in and actually see the value of Operations Hub really fast without much sort of technical skill and knowledge, the format data sort of action that you get available is really, really powerful and really cool. So what you can actually do with the format data section is you can choose a specific property, and you can come in here and set some formatting rules. So I've selected here first name, and then what I can do is I can come in here and I can choose to do one of any number of actions that are applied or given me as options here. So, you know, I'm using first name. So the main thing I was going to be thinking about doing here is capitalizing first letter. One of the problems we often have, especially when using personalization in emails or on web pages, is consumers sometimes just, when they enter in their details on our forms or whatever it might be, they don't put their name in with a capital at the front. And it can look a little bit sort of just funny when you send an email to someone and it's like, hey, John, with a lowercase j at the beginning. It's not as professional. It doesn't feel as nice, and the personalization looks like it's exactly that. It's automated personalization, as opposed to it feeling more like it's custom and sent from someone in the sales team. And that's what we want to avoid, right? That generally speaking, when we use automation, the goal of it is to stop it having to be a manual process, but still make it look like it might be a manual process. That's really the goal of automation. It keeps that familiarity, and it makes it so that the consumer doesn't really know whether or not this has actually come from a computer or from a person. So when you don't have capitalized first letters in that, it's something that a normal human wouldn't make the mistake of doing, is putting in John without a capital J. So what we can do is we can use this format data to sort of say, hey, I want to capitalize the first letter and then I want to output that, and then I'm going to save that action and copy that property value straight back into the first name again. So what it does is it will take someone's current first name, it'll capitalize the first letter and reformat that and enter it back into the first name, overriding the existing sort of thing. So what that will mean is I can actually just enroll anyone whose first name is known, put them through this format data action, and that will ensure that every single consumer that's entered into my CRM comes and has a correctly formatted first name with capital at the beginning. So there's a few other things in here that you can do. You can do a whole bunch of functions like calculate the square root of a number, add an amount of time. This one's a really great one for me that I love to have, is like sort of setting up a sort of potentially a delay workflow type thing that says, oh, I want someone to be put into this. I then want an amount of time added to that. And then I want to wait till that occurs. So we might say, oh, I want to have this be a customized thing that says after 1 day after an action occurs, I want that to trigger off something else. I've got to then, I can just have it triggered off the action, add an amount of time to a time value, and then have something else trigger off that. There's ways to change date formats. So if you have dates coming in different formats, from maybe you've got a global company and dates are coming in, one in US data is coming in and with date in one format, you've got UK data coming in one format, and you want to have a consistent sort of date format across all regions. You can actually have the change date format, and then you can set sort of what that date format might be. There's some documentation on how you sort of customize that, but you can sort of set that you want like, day, month, year, and set that, and it'll customize that and change that for you. There's a whole bunch of really cool things in here. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's some really good documentation that you can read online about what these are and how these can be worked. It's really good. My favorite one is this one as well. The leading and trailing white space. Often people put spaces by accident when they enter in things into like fields within the system, especially problematic with something sometimes like emails, because if emails have a space at the beginning, they can sometimes just not send correctly to that consumer. So having this trim leading and trailing white space can really sort of clean up that data. This whole section of format data, it's about consistency of data. It's about cleaning up data to make sure that every single consumer within your system, or every company if that's what you're dealing with, or deals if that's what you're dealing with, these can all be used across all those different objects, are all consistently formatted. Now, this is the sort of nice and easy to use mode where you can select your format action. There is a custom mode for those that have some coding functions, so you can sort of put in your own formulas and set that up yourself. So for those that like to sort of do it get their hands dirty, that's the way for you. I did say I'd quickly mention as well the custom code actions. This is the really complex side of Operations Hub. And what this gets you able to do is you can legitimately have a lot of actions that you maybe historically had to do via a sort of maybe a third-party server or some sort of middleware company or some other third-party tool. If you wanted to sort of have something action back in the system across another object or something like that, you would often have to have all of the coding for that happen externally to HubSpot and then send that data back in via an API. Now, with custom code actions, you can actually have all of these actions happen via a code that sits within a workflow. So instead of having that third-party system or a server on your side that needs to sort of action a lot of those things and run those code calculations, you can have them all run here within a custom code action in a workflow. Now, it's almost completely limitless what you could do with this. There is a huge amount of potential options of what you could do. I'm not going to try and even explain too many of them because there's it's almost incomprehensible what you can do, but you could literally do anything. If you have the ability to code something, you can get developers in to sort of create using Node or Python. They can actually create like any code that sort of updates certain other objects when something happens. They can update properties, and they can do a bunch of other things. What I will do is give you two really quick examples. One that we're doing for one client, and this is going to be relevant for anyone that has any GDPR requirements that they must follow, is often with from a legal perspective for GDPR, if consumers don't meet certain engagement criteria over a period of time, there's a requirement for us to clear and delete any specific data we have on them outside of a few core properties. Things like name and email are allowed to be retained, but after a certain amount of time of no engagement, we need to clear all their other data that we have stored on them within our CRM to meet our GDPR requirements. In the past, this was really, really difficult. It would often be legitimately having to identify those consumers and go in and manually just clear properties, or set up a workflow with a whole bunch of actions that clear this one, clear this one, clear this one, clear this one, every single different data point. And if you have 100, 200 different data points you might have consumer data on, that's a really, really, really difficult thing to set up. What this custom code action's done, and what we've done for a client recently, is we got one of our developers to come in and put together a custom code action that when a person is enrolled in a workflow, that is, they meet the lack of engagement criteria, which might be about 2 years without engaging with any emails or whatever it might be as part of their GDPR requirements, they get enrolled in this custom code action, and all it does is it goes through and it legitimately clears every single data point except for name, email, and phone number. And then that person can be retained in our database for sort of analytics purposes until they meet the next requirement, which is after I think 7 years, which when we need to actually delete them from the system if they haven't yet engaged. So it's a really powerful tool that gives you that ability to do anything. Another one is explained in this sort of video that's actually from HubSpot themselves, which is about how there's a way to create this custom code action where you can actually set up a referral program and assign referral credit back to the contact that the person was referred to. So in essence, you can have a form someone submits. They say, hey, yep, I was referred by this person. They enter that person's email address. And then the custom code action will search your CRM for that consumer's email address and assign an incremental value for referred customers onto that consumer. So then you've got a history of the amount of customers that another customer's referred. This was something that we wouldn't have been able to do in the past. It would have been a very manual process. But now we can do it with custom code actions. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do. If you are interested in custom code actions, my recommendation is go online, Google HubSpot custom code actions, and figure out, get some good examples online. And then also just be creative and come up with what you might think is be cool to do, and see if it's possible. Speak to some developers or a dev team or a partner agency like us, and we can help you sort of build that out. The last one.
Well, one more page.
Yeah,
that's three now.
So the last thing is just about data sync. So this is the one you mentioned earlier. That is now possible. So if you go into the app marketplace, under HubSpot app marketplace, there's data sync built by HubSpot here on the left-hand side. And this is where HubSpot's acquisition of PySync has come into its own, and we now have data sync by HubSpot as, and these are all the sort of supported programs. You'll see there's a huge amount here. There's over 3 pages of them here, and each one has like 30 or 40 on them. It's a total of 110 at the moment. That's constantly being updated. In essence, there's more being added all fairly regularly. And it's really simple. It's one-click installs and one-click setups. You click the specific integration you want to set up. You click install app. You connect to your existing sort of account. You connect that up to your system. And then you go, boom, I want to set up my sync. It brings you in. I want to set up a contact sync. And now I've got a Google contact sync that I'm setting up. I can set up whether I want that to be a one-way between from HubSpot to Google, or from Google to HubSpot, or if I want that to be a two-way sync between both. I can set a resolution for if there's any conflicts in data, determining which one gets priority, saying, yep, we want HubSpot to be the priority here. And then I can set my mappings and say, okay, I want, first name from Google goes to first name in HubSpot, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all the default ones, but then we can add custom mappings as well. So you can start to come in here and say, oh, I want someone's, whatever it might be. Let's go chat Google Talk, and I'm going to have my own property that I have stored for that. Or maybe I've got, whatever it might be. We've got like their notes that comes into a different notes section that we have, whatever it might be. So you can also set up custom mappings here. Once you've done that and you've got that set up, you can click next and go through and finalize all the setup on your side. Just really quickly and easily. It's pretty simple to do. Once you're done, you get to quick review, and you can go save and sync, and it'll turn on your sync, and instantly you'll start to see contacts flow from Google Contacts into HubSpot and vice versa as needed. So this can be set up, like I said, for all of those other tools that you saw in the app marketplace here. So there's a bunch of other programs. There's, whether it be, intercom, like a chat-based apps. You've got other CRM systems like Zoho. So it's really good for also migrating data from your old systems into HubSpot and things like that. So really good and really useful tools to make syncing and integrations just so much easier than they used to be. Really quick and easy way. So there are some times where these sort of the native sort of data sync integrations maybe won't work for your specific needs because you may have some custom setups. And those scenarios, the best thing to do is probably to get in contact with a partner agency or a development team and work with them to set up a custom integration. But really this data sync by HubSpot is a game changer for anyone that has sort of fairly simple setups in other systems and they want to sort of sync data across between the two.
I think it's pretty cool, Peach, how it's made it so simple for people, right? Because all of this stuff what you've just showed us would have been very complex, right? As you were going into the code and all that kind of stuff, it probably would have been very, very complex in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It was the thing that probably a year or two ago, it would be something you'd have to go and you'd hire either a full development team to spend 6 months building or an agency to do for you. And a lot of it you can do without that now, which is great.
Yeah, and I love like some of the allusion you had to Ops Hub now being not necessarily its own hub in a sense, but it's almost like the connective tissue between all the pre-existing hubs and how they had brought across data previously, and now this is like a layer to that where it's sort of removing now that disparity in data that we see being synced between different systems and whatnot. Not only that, like, you have deal properties and contact and custom and company properties and even custom object properties as well that can sometimes be inaccurate or misleading and whatnot. And I think this added layer of HubSpot Operations Hub is like a really nice overarching connective tissue that I think a lot of people will benefit from. And the biggest benefit I can see, as Peach alluded to, all those different connective apps and whatnot that are really simple to set up, like he showed. It's now allowing you to keep everything much more centralized. And we often talk about an omni-channel experience and whatnot, but now having Ops Hub that kind of ties in all the data together and keeps things succinct into one system where there's a single source of truth. That is now eliminating the need for all those multiple platforms and bolstering that omni-channel experience in a way it's never been capable before from a CRM.
Yeah. And Peachy, what about like something simple like duplicated data, right? A lot of people have that. Can you use Operations Hub to clean that up?
Absolutely. I mean, there's already a lot of native tools in HubSpot that historically did that. There's their duplicates identification. But one of the things that we've got some custom code workflows running for some customers already is things where we are actually looking to set up our own custom lists for potential duplicates based on things like phone number and stuff. The things that HubSpot don't traditionally use to deduplicate contacts, we're setting up custom code workflow actions to search the database for someone with the same phone number and go, hey, there is someone. Let's add this new consumer to a potential duplicates workflow and have a sort of constant review of that to see, hey, is this a duplicate? Okay, yeah, let's merge them. HubSpot does a lot of that sort of stuff automatically, but also it just means that we can really, on our own terms as well, prioritize that, work through it maybe even weekly and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways to sort of do that sort of thing. Also just one thing we didn't even get to today is the reporting tools that Operations Hub does, where you can have data sets and things created. So it just makes the best thing about this whole idea of Data Operations Hub is just the idea of how data can become so much more consistent, but also just easy to manage and easier and quicker for you to do everything. That's for me what it primarily does. It's made my job so much easier, because in the past I'd have to go in and manually update things and clean up data and all this sort of stuff, export it to Excel, clean it up and re-input it. Now I can do all of that directly within HubSpot without having to leave the system, and in about half the time. So that's the best thing.
That's great.
I think, a lot of people, a lot of customers and clients that we deal with would benefit from this a lot. And, if you're facing similar things and whatnot, reach out, as Peachy said, to us. Obviously, the tools at hand, as you saw, are very easy to use, and with very commonly how HubSpot's set up, it's great for a user experience, and it's pretty straightforward, as Peachy was showing. But when you start to actually get into what your pain points are and how you best go about it in a timely, efficient manner, and also pending your team's capacity and capabilities, reaching out to someone like Silverstone, like us, to help talk through these solutions, as probably your best point of call, as Peachy said. So thanks so much, Peachy, for sharing and all of that. Really appreciate it.
And it's good to know, Peachy, that it's making your job easier, because that's what we're really all here for, is to make your job easier.
100%. 100%.
Thanks for joining us live from Perth, and thanks for everybody for joining us for the episode that you have just seen, of course, right here. So this is the Under the Hood series. Hope you keep up to date with all our regular episodes. This was data quality and management that we had with the wonderful Peachy. Next time, and we might be calling you on this one, Peachy, as well, because we're just getting deeper and deeper in some of these episodes. Custom card builder and CRM record customization. A mouthful, but I'm sure an interesting topic nonetheless. Join us next time.
That's great. Can't wait for that alliteration exercise each time we talk about that topic, and I really look forward to it. Thanks again, Peachy. Appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks, everyone.